I said, road and drainage, what's going up this year? Trash department, fire department went down $50, but it's gonna go right back up. So then you're sitting there and you're going, well, we're gonna raise your taxes. It's almost like a subtle threat, you know? You're not explaining what you're not explaining. I'm just telling you for you. You want people to vote for this? Put a number on what you can borrow. Put a number on what you can, if you're sitting there going, all right, I can borrow 15 million every year. Like I said, and then we're gonna take it from the departments. Okay, so you just sent out those letters before this in the last meeting that said you can raise those departments without telling anybody anything. Not you personally, but the commission, which again, what this all winds up to be, this is why people don't trust. It's a workaround. It's, okay, I'll dump it into the trash department, I'll dump it into road and drain, and they're gonna have more now to pay that back. Where does it stop? Is there a limit on it? At what point does it kick in and say, okay, no more? Because like I said, we have 15 more years of road to pay for. There's no more money there. We already know it. We don't know what happened to the 1.86 million or 1.69 million that DeSantis sent for infrastructure. That came here. I mean, that's in black and white. I mean, I just don't, I sit there and a lot of the time when I look at this, you said you can't move money from place to place. Well, the water park, that was for roads. That money was for roads and infrastructure.
Actually.
Not you, Hank Stitch.
Actually, almost 90% of the cost of that aquatic center came from CPAS.
Well,
Right, that's for roads though, is what it is.
Well, all right, but wait a
It
minute.
was-
You
it was
said before,
changed.
as funny as an analogy was, is if you're in a home and your appliances are all going, okay, it's been old. Well, I certainly wouldn't buy a $90,000 car and go on vacation if I know something is going to be broken. And that's the problem I have with commissioners now. I'm sorry, money is not.
It's like a
being
gamble
put
with a
where it
habit.
should be put.
Can't stop putting the hundreds in the machine. I mean, I get it. The city's growing, but you could show and say, look, you know what? You could actually show the residents, look, all this, all these houses, all this commercial has brought in X amount of dollars more, and this is what we did with it. Show them, because there's nothing. Nobody's seeing anything from that.
Again,
Whether you-
I don't want to be as rude, except that I'll be blunt, since I appreciate the bluntness of you all, okay? Because I think like you don't get anywhere if people tiptoe around issues. We spent the last, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months working on our budgets. There was never more than 2 or 3 people in that room, ever, for the workshops, for the commission meetings, nobody. The budget book sits this big. Every single dollar that this city generates in revenue is accounted for, is earmarked, can be tracked as to where it's spent and how it's used. So for those people that say, where did it all go? I am more than happy to bring you to sit with our financial staff and answer any and all questions you have on where our dollars get spent.
What's the limit? What is the limit on the borrowing?
Right.
Per year, you said every year.
No, it's per emergency.
Well,
It's not every year.
Here's the thing. If next year we borrow, say, $50 million from Public Works, or said, we're gonna go out and we're gonna borrow 50 million. It costs over the next 30 years, it costs principal and interest to pay that 50 back, right? Okay? So you can't keep borrowing 50 every year because you have to use each year's revenues to help pay.
You can, that's how people get in trouble with credit cards.
Well,
Yeah.
You can.
oh, sure you
And
can.
the other thing you said
Sure, you
with
can.
the advisory board, I sat on the advisory board. And why I left? Simple. David Duval and Andrew Sayers, both of them running against each other right now, said, hell with this. They said I had enough. They wouldn't go back on there because whatever they said, I don't think either of those gentlemen are dumb people. They're probably the two best run for the same seat instead. But, it's, to me, they said, commissioners don't listen to us. Advisory board doesn't mean anything. I mean, they give suggestions. You guys are the ones with the power, that's the issue. And to me, just like I said the last time with those letters with that open-ended thing, attempt to give more of an explanation than, well, we're gonna raise your taxes later on, or, safety costs money, that you said that the last time. I mean, that's ridiculous. That people got angry. I was sitting there and people got angry when you said that. I mean, it just, sometimes in a small explanation, something that's feasible goes a long way. I'm trying to help you guys out. I'm all for the fire, I'm all for the police, no doubt about it. But again, you can't say that money doesn't go. It's already moving back and forth from water park to school to,
Actually, it's against the law to take any funds from these districts and use them elsewhere. It's against the law. The city's never done it, okay?
never
If it
took
did,
money and put it back into the general fund.
Believe it can't. You can take general fund money, you can put it into these districts if you so choose, but you can't
So you
take.
can't take
money.
from drainage or
No.
fire or,
It's against the law.
or trash department
Against the
and
law.
put it into the general fund. You
It's
can't do
against the
that.
law. It's never been done. And believe me, with the folks, with a group of folks that are out there watching over our shoulders, I guarantee you, if we did, we'd be hauled out of the city and carried away. Believe me, when I tell you, it's against the law. It hasn't been done. The only funds that get used are what's legally allowed to be used. And again, I come back to, one way or the other, we gotta fix our infrastructure. We gotta fix it. And it's all gonna be a question of how we do it and at what cost. This lady right here had a question.
So from what I understand, there was a commission meeting in either May or June, and it was kind of in response to your question a little bit. From what I understand, because we didn't have the ability to borrow in an emergency, we missed out on millions in hurricane relief, which might explain in part why so many other cities didn't, maybe it took them longer to get some things taken care of, but maybe that's how they were able to get by a little bit easier.
Very often when I sit on the Florida League of Cities Infrastructure Committee and Utilities Committee. And so I get to go and listen to what goes on a little bit at the state. And I was on the action committee, a federal action committee. I went to Washington once or twice. I could just as soon have passed on. But it made me appreciate that there are all kinds of monies out there, but there's windows of opportunity where application has to be made and you have to meet the criteria and you have to have the ability to have funding in place. In some cases, you got to spend your money first and then get reimbursed. And yeah, there's a lot of that. We have a really good grant department that works very hard, and they struggle with some of the missed opportunities because of this. And there's no doubt in many instances, you'll see federal forgiveness on some of this borrowing because they appreciate that this is a huge burden for a lot of municipalities, and federal government has lots of money to spend.
So they don't. We're trillions in debt.
Oh, yeah.
It's our money, we're not paying our
The
great.
great thing about them is they can print more money, we can't.
That's the thing, that makes your money worth it, who's gonna retire?
You had a question, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it.
Yeah, if you keep talking about infrastructure, you got all these things that, why wasn't this planned for? When this city was built, you had these structures, they need maintenance.
Great
It was never set up to be, like you said, we got 90 water structures that need, why? It should only be, you should have already been on a rotating schedule going all the way around. Same with the bridges. This is just like any other government. They let it get to waste, then, we need more money. We need more money.
Because I guarantee you, there must have been hundreds of conversations just like this over the last 20 years. How are we gonna do this? Where are we gonna get the money from? How are we gonna, where? And you know what? It was easier to talk about all these other things and not talk about how to address the elephant in the room, which is our infrastructure.
Here's a place to get money from the county, okay? Up until recently, until an 80-something-year-old man took Sarasota County to court. You know what I'm gonna say? The roofs. When you did a roof, they called it an upgrade. Okay, they actually hit me, they tried hitting me for $27,000 for my roof.
Yep.
I called them up, they made a mistake, but they still jumped my taxes $9,000. Now, all of a sudden, it's not an upgrade, but guess what? If you paid it and you've been paying it, and all the people before this lawsuit,
Well,
oh, well,
and that's
so
not.
sad to be
you.
you.
Your home.
Get out,
I'll
improvement.
give the
Need
county,
roof.
I'll give the county a little bit of kudos. You know, they got that HUD funding. They went out and asked for the money. They got, $210 million. We ended up getting a huge chunk of that. We ended up getting, just for our Nyagahatchee Bridge and a couple of water structures and another project which escapes me at this moment, came to like, I want to say 14, $15 million found money that the county turned over to us. And then, of course, what monies they're able to feed out to our businesses and our individual, homeowners.
Approximately how much is a water structure cost?
What's that?
Approximately
Water structure can run anywhere from 4 to 6 mil.
or 6 million, so 3 years, 4, 5 years, 5 years of a water law. Show, there you go. There's a water structure every 5 years. I'm just telling you,
You know what?
that was a mistake. That's why he's not there.
It's interesting though, because when, we'll say 5 months ago, we started talking about a new police headquarters. And if you remember, for anybody who was paying attention, the conversation we had when staff suggested that, well, we could raise property taxes to raise 35 million of it, and 40 million of it we could take from the surtax, which was price widening, phase 2, right?
Right.
And then I said, well, wait a minute, if we're gonna take some money from the surtax, why don't we look to take another 20, 30 million? What projects can we just get rid of? Let's not open up any new parks out east. Let's not do any of these quality of life things. They're wants, but are they needs? Well, we're a city of 90,000 people, and city government has an obligation to do a variety of things. We have a set of pillars that we run our city by. Safety first, quality of life, good governance. We have all these areas that we try to balance our priorities on. And if we rape and pillage and plunder one area at the expense of others, the city becomes so imbalanced. Who would want to live here
So
if
they're
we
not
have to
gonna-
sell off our parking?
They're not gonna do that anymore?
No.
I mean, they're not gonna take phase 2 and phase 3 and pay for the police station? Well, they are.
No,
They're not gonna.
no.
So you're not gonna pay for the police station at all now. That went down the tubes. You're not getting the police station. Because there's also the fire department that nobody's talked about, that also has to be put up,
Yeah,
that has no
They have,
funding,
but see,
no funding.
they have their own district funding, so they'll be able to pay for it. They already have budgeting for it.
They were
But
asking
the
if
police have a problem. Safety comes out of general fund. The bulk, the vast majority of all our general fund money, the property tax, pays for safety.
Why isn't that, is that on the ballot?
That's gonna have to go to a public, that'll have to go to referendum.
So that wasn't put on the ballot. Well, the last I remember was, we were doing phase 1 between Toledo and Price, down Price between Toledo and Sumter. That was getting done. 2 and 3, we're gonna wait. They weren't that important. That was the most important area. The
But-
rest is going to the police
but they
station, we're gonna
still-
look for the rest of the money.
No decisions were made to move any money out of surtax to anywhere else. It still sits in surtax for the full widening of Price Boulevard. And as far as how we do a police building, that all's gonna be up to what the citizens want. My take is, as much as I love our police, and as much as they have provided one of the safest cities in this country for people, for our citizens to live in, the reality is, I think it's time to address infrastructure over that. So if there's another way to do it, we get someone to build it and lease it. Why not? Do a sale lease back, do a lease purchase. There are some creative financing ways in which we don't have to put up the money, $122 million to pay for that police building up front. We can find ways to finance it over time, okay, so that all the citizens here and now into the future and the businesses that benefit get paid for that. But it doesn't come out of our surtax money. It doesn't push the rest of it, widening the price out or force our property taxes through the roof. Because I don't want a 20% property tax increase so that we could have a new police headquarters. You know, I mean, as much as I know they need it, and they do need it, but there's ways to do things that are fiscally responsible. And that brings you back to this. It's how do you get the biggest bang for that buck? How do you stretch that dollar out far enough? You can't spend more than we got. And the guideline is how much can fees increase and taxes increase until people scream so loud? And the reality is, this city, I think, has done a pretty good job doing everything it can to keep our property tax rates flat and to minimize what increases we've had to make in the areas of all these district fees. They were, impact fees alone should have been raised years ago. The fees for all our, I mean, there were things that we do for our citizenry and our business out there that we don't get paid anything for. They're just bleed our tax revenues because every other municipality is charging for them and we don't. So, you know, this city was really not well run. And it's not necessarily because people were bad people who ran the city, but let's face it, this city's double, tripled in population so quickly.
So we should have a lot more taxes coming in.
Yeah. You know, and a whole lot more cost to try and to provide all the basic services to them. You know, you look at public works, you look at fire rescue, you look at police. We are second to none. There is no, I mean, we provide the highest quality in those areas of pretty much anybody around. And that's what we want. I mean, I think that's what our citizens want. Our quality of life. I mean, we have 29 parks and recreations. Now, they're pretty heavily to the west of our city. Some need to be sold off, some need to be reconstituted into something different. So we create some available monies to build on the east side where our populations are growing. So there's, you know, management of our resources, but, you know, I'd like to think in the last handful of years, at least, we've done a good job trying to do that. Whether it's enough to win over people's confidence or not, I don't know. I mean, I get the trepidation, I get the hesitation.
Just wanted to make a comment, listening to everybody's comments about, you know, stop spending, you know, don't raise taxes. What I think about is, one, people are flocking to our city. There was a reason that they are, because it's a great place to live, work, and play. It's financially sound city. It's being run. The financial department has won 15 years of awards. There are state rules that have to be followed. You know, the old saying, you get what you pay for. Now, I don't know where everybody's come from, but I'm sure the cities that they've come from have been established. I mean, New York, 400 years old and such. This is a young city of 65 years. We've got growing pains and we've got infrastructure that needs to take care of. I've been watching meetings. I've been looking at, you know, the budget talks. We've attended budget talks. You're absolutely right. There's been 2 or 3 people there. You know, it's how do we pay for everything? How do we look at the 90,000+ people and do something to balance the entire operation? Not just focus on any specific group, but do the best for the entire city. And, you know, you guys, I believe are doing a good job. Trust me, I'm not advocating, you know, higher taxes. I mean, you know, but if we need to do this, now people talk about the role of growth, all the taxes that are coming in. We only still have 8% commercial. We have the balance of it, 92% on the residents paying property taxes. The services that this city provides don't cover the full number. So bottom line, money's got to come from somewhere. I look at, you know, this referendum. Yeah, again, I don't want to be paying more taxes, but it gives the city more tools in the tool bag to be able to do things. I mean, Price Boulevard, we moved here, what, 2013? They were talking about it then, kicking the can down the road.
The sign was up.
40 years.
Yeah, the sign has been bleached by the sun, it's been up so long. Now, people say, well, where's that money? Well, it's like you running a family, you have children, you put money away, we're gonna go on a vacation. All of a sudden, the car engine blows, or you need a roof. Guess what? Where's that money coming from?
$12 million emergency water park is where some of it went. I can tell you that now. That they took and put it in there because the water park, yeah, it's a private person who's gonna put one up. And the city wanted to rent the part of the property, did not sell it to them. Instead, we wound up with a taxpayer fund one, which costs $750 million a year, taxpayer money. Yeah,
That was,
Yeah, we weren't here, but that was.
I'm just
Yeah.
telling you, I've been here first, so I can tell you what happened there, and I was living.
yeah, I mean, the history of the city, I mean, 65 years old this past June. General Development Corp came in, they bought up all the land. I remember as a kid watching TV late at night, seeing Eric Estrada selling the land. And everything was platted out, so, Florida has property rights. If I came here in 2013 and wanted to buy a house, nobody told me, you can't buy, we don't want you here. You're from New York, or you're from New Jersey, or you're from Connecticut, we don't want you here. I could have sued people.
You haven't run into the locals, have you?
Well,
Because I have.
Trust me. But the-
You were saying about how something happens and you're gonna go on vacation, and what do you do? So I'd like to finish.
Well, what do? You postpone the vacation, you take whatever money, if you have enough to cover the full night, or we have several things at our disposal. Credit cards,
Right.
home equity loans, and we take mortgages out to buy homes, right? If we, like, the commissioner said, if we were to save that money, and look at Price now. Price, all those years, they talk, first of all, my belief is that intersection on 75 should have been put in years ago. Because the majority of those people,
Exchange.
the exchange, coming from Port Charlotte, are coming this way. They're not gonna go down to 170, they're coming up to 179.
Here's the issue. Okay, so you have commissioners. How much you get paid? 32,000, 33,000, something like that. Okay, I'm just, I'm not doing this to disparage, but you listen to him. Some of them are goofy. I will tell you, some of them are goofy. He's running it. I have a little bit of respect for him because, he knows how to speak, this and that, but the guy from the water park, he came from Arkansas. Well, he had no idea. The one, Cheryl Cook, she showed up in that bathroom, bringing my bed. I was telling some of them. So I don't know if the answer to getting maybe better people in there, that might be, Jack in there, pay a couple of dollars. What's that gonna cost for another $5,000 for them?
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the only thing you need to run right now is a check for $325.
20 people or something like that.
Yeah, and a petition, right, but there's no, to your point, there's no background of, have you done this or are you?
The thing about it is, we could look back, when I moved here almost 10 years ago, and I bought a place in Welland Park. I didn't even know it was Welland Park then, or West Villages. I wanted somewhere that was 30 minutes from my in-laws. And when I looked down at Bobcat and I looked at some of the places along Toledo, I said, God, this could be like an hour's haul up to Palmer Ranch where Val's folks lived. So we picked like Grand Paradiso, right? And then I found out what all West Villages was about and all this and that. And, the first year after we moved here, commission want to raise our property taxes 30%. I was one of those couple of hundred people down there screaming and yelling at City Hall, getting up for 3 minutes and carrying on. Thank God Commissioner Carousel doesn't remember all the nasty things I said. But not long after that, a group of my fellow community members up there decided, you know what, Northport wasn't good enough for them and that they want to be part of the county. They got sold a bill of goods that they lived in Venice and that's where they want to go. They want to de-annex from our city, right? And, some of them were my good friends no longer who, like I said, you know what? Why don't we actually invest in the city? and get involved and get on some boards and run for office. And they all said, you know what? We'll try to de-annex. We could do this. I said, the only adversarial de-annexation ever took place in this country was when we de-annexed from England. Okay, so good luck. And don't call me anymore because I'm gonna do what I can to help Northport. And by the way, we live in Northport, not Venice. And so, I went on the tax oversight committee and I started attending some meetings. And I was pretty horrified, you know? I mean, I saw people who cared about their city, and there isn't any commissioner in the 10 years I've lived here who didn't run for commission because they cared about this city. None of them got rich over it, and they all did it because they cared. They may not have known all the right things to do, but in their hearts, they cared about their city. And when Joe Luke and I ran into each other and I said, like, who's running for your spot? And she said, no one yet. She says, why do you want to run? I said, are you kidding me? And then I thought about it and I said, well, how would I ever get elected? And, and we talked more and I thought to myself, I have a career in finance and I bring some skill set, some experience. And, all my life, all I did was work and care about myself, make my own money, pay my own bills. I had obligations, responsibilities, but now I have the opportunity to give back and try to do good. So it hurts me when I read some of the stuff on social media about how we're in everybody's pocket and we're getting fat and rich and we don't care about, because we're you. We are you. I'm no different than any one of you in this room.
All of you are.
What's
All
up?
of you are. I'm
Eh,
sorry.
They don't always act
Not all.
like it, but remember, it isn't easy to sit up there and try to do what they think is the best for the most, recognizing that for every decision, there's a whole lot of people that are going to disagree. So the intent, the heart is there, and the skill sets you talk about, if the job paid more, yeah, we could attract more. And that's a conversation we're actually probably going to be having in the near future because we're way behind the apple on it. And it would be important. Look at the average age of us old farts up there. The truth is that there are middle-aged people who could, if they could not make a career out of politics, because the truth is the politics of this stinks. It's the public service that's great. And if you can make a living doing public service, a lot more people would do it. So that's where we need to get to. And in the meantime, all we can try to do is the best we can do and try to earn people's trust. Try to show as best we can that we care, that we are listening. And the worst thing is when people say, you let us talk, we say what's on our mind, but then you go do whatever you want anyways. And in a lot of cases, that's true. And it's true not because we don't care what you're saying or that we even think what you're saying is wrong. It's that for every decision, there are so many perspectives to it. There are so many other considerations. The vocal voices, and I won't call them minority, I'll call them vocal voices, who typically are on either side of issues. We hear them, but there's 90% of the rest of the city out there that are worthy of consideration. And there are all kinds of roadblocks, constrictions, obstacles, things that slow city government down purposely for the purpose of making sure that things are methodical, careful, legal. And it's real hard for everybody to understand it. It was hard for me to understand it. It's still hard for me to understand why we can't get stuff done quicker than we do.
I can tell you, they look at stuff, okay, so again, and I don't want to hawk, but go back to the water park. That didn't have a snowball's chance in hell if that went to the voters. It was all but for Joan Morgan behind that and Hanks that pushed that through and put it there. People didn't want that.
And I'll tell you that.
And I'm just, so when you say they look at, and you could say, okay, it's an isolated thing, but even Debbie, you know, you may not like her now, whatever, but Debbie was good for a long time, and she sat there and she said, I voted on it, and they were supposed to give me the numbers, and they weren't there. How could you vote on something if you don't have the numbers on something? So you see,
It's funny.
when you hear this stuff.
Barbara Langdon and I, for the past 2 years, have dialogued with staff over and over and over about the issue of quality of life in parks and recs, and the fact that they are true cost centers of the city. They draw our tax dollars, and it's not just the aquatic center, okay? It's the Morgan Center,
Right.
it's the Mullins Center, it's the parks that cost untold millions of dollars to help pay for it. But every city does need to provide quality of life to its citizens.
They do, but, and I totally agree. But when you sit here and say that these infrastructures are so old and needed, how new or how old are all those amenities that we've had? We didn't know that this year, we were gonna wind up here? That's the only thing I'm trying to say. You
And
don't
you weren't
spend what
there.
you don't have.
And what I've tried to say is, if we could find a way not to turn those amenities into profit centers, but to mitigate the costs so they don't cost us as much, or they come close to breaking even or break even, that would be a great thing. And there are many things in the works to try to do just that and look at how we manage our open space and our recreation areas in a way that's more fiscally responsible. Nobody ever really thinks about that sort of stuff and what you could do. I mean, you think about it, if you're a user of an amenity, would it matter if you paid another $2-3 to go to the aquatic center? Nah, I'd pay it. Okay? When our grandkids come down and they come down, we take them there all the time. I have to tell you, for all of us who live in planned communities, and a lot of us do, and especially all the newer people that are coming, are moving into communities. They either got their own pools, they got community pools in there. I gotta tell you, having a municipal pool for people who can't afford it is an incredible opportunity. And just like we have to fork out our tax dollars to pay for good schools, we should do that for our kids and our families that are less fortunate. In most municipalities, I grew up in a municipality where we had a town pool. Every dollar it cost to that town pool came out of our citizens' tax
You
dollars.
could have had 2 pools.
At least this aquatic center. And I'm not making excuses for it, but at least this aquatic center covers a significant portion of its cost. If we had a scaled down municipal pool, I guarantee you, it will cost more than $500,000 out of pocket that it's costing us now. So I say, let's see what we could do with some of that land and added amenity, added things we could do at very low cost that we could charge more for and make up the revenues for. And there's ways to squeeze that number down so that, it's minimal. But you gotta keep up ball fields, you gotta keep up park areas, and they cost a lot of money.
One second. She's had a question for about 10 minutes. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to get back to the referendum and and the perception, I think you mentioned it, that the new police department is some way related or would be related to the money from the referendum. If we are not planning on a new police station, then why are they out there surveying and staking all the land off?
Oh,
Just-
we will build a new police station, but we won't do it with this referendum money, whether it gets approved or not. The amount of money, first of all, it's not a crisis, it's not a disaster related, it's not even a health, and you could make an argument it's a health and safety related infrastructure, right? But that's a $15 million gap. Whether it's 122 million, 100 million, 80 million, whatever the total nut is to build a police station, you all gotta okay that, unless we're able to find a way to build it with someone else's money.
When are we gonna okay it?
What's that?
When are we going to? Okay.
Well, over the next probably 3 to 4 months, I'd say as we get into first and second quarter of next year, we'll have recommendations, the commission will, as to some of the creative approaches that haven't already been talked about. We're not gonna take surtax money. We're not gonna raise your property taxes or all our property taxes to pay for $100 million building. I mean, just to do that would give us nosebleeds. I mean, it's just not realistic. The way to do it, truthfully, and it's not etched in stone. My fellow commissioners haven't blessed it, nor has even Stanless, but I can tell you, the answer is to do a leasing arrangement where it can be paid over the years, you know, like you would. There are companies that build facilities, they do it for schools, very, you know, it's a very common practice. And then some systems lease it back, and there's a buyout at the end for a nominal fee. But there's ways to do it that doesn't come off the backs of our taxpayers, our current taxpayers. But in no way will that police building get built out of this referendum monies where this borrowing authority is given to us. This is really, really restrictive. I gotta tell you, you're gonna watch every year the analysis and the focus on what projects, and we just can't spend any more money than what we got. And if we turn around and we're even regulated as to how much we can increase some of these district fees. So you can't just keep every year borrowing more money, because you're gonna need those annual revenues to pay the debt. What we wanna try to do is just accelerate the process. You know, if we can build a couple of more water structures, rebuild them a year. I mean, instead of spending $4 million a year or $8 million a year, we could spend 10. If we could do an extra bridge or so, that would be huge. Convert a few more neighborhoods to water and sewer, because then there's SoCal fees that come in and help defray the cost of that. And that is huge.
Part of what you just said about, you know, looking for other ways and stuff to raise the monies and whatnot. I know that economic development is working feverishly to bring companies here. But companies have certain criteria that they operate under. And part of that, you know, people see a lot of these apartment buildings. You know, I've seen it, and I was, you know, pretty much against it because, you know, number one, don't give up commercial land for one of these multifamily units. But in understanding the requirements by these corporations and businesses that want to come here, they're looking for certain density of people. One, two, they're looking for a median income, at least $75,000 a year, because they want people to frequent their business. They're not going to invest here and then wind up, nobody shows up. So they're working feverishly to bring people here. We need to grow that 8% commercial to at least 25, 30%. It's a very difficult task to do.
It's a little off from necessarily the referendum conversation, but it is telling that non-residential growth and higher density residential does a bunch of stuff for our city. All these developments have to, one, maintain and manage a stormwater management program that single-family properties don't. So for all these projects you see, you know, we all, Jesus, you know, all this development, all this growth, like there's more flooding, there's more problems. Are these big projects and developments doing that? Well, you know what? We go out to Meyer or Welland Park. I mean, that was a swamp. That was I mean, you know, that flooded. That, you know what? We don't have any flooding. You know why? Because we have hundreds of settling ponds, of retaining ponds that are networked together, because the developer is required by law to make sure there is no greater stormwater runoff after development than before development. When you see apartment complexes go up and you see some of these other like planned community areas grow up as they will out east, they will have to maintain a quality of stormwater management, which will help actually mitigate. But there's so much more we could do. You know, there really is. And the other thing is the revenues that these businesses will bring in will help balance the tax load. It costs us actually and it's not an exact number, but for every dollar of services, or for every dollar of property tax revenue we bring in, it probably costs us close to $1.25 or more to provide the basic services to single family properties. That's insane. And the way general development designed the city, we're pretty much all single family development. So this higher density, it does create some real aches and pains. But at the same time, it sets the stage for one, attracting better businesses, which will hopefully bring better jobs. I mean, the hospitals, believe me, how long did Sarasota Memorial? We all paid, how many years we paid Sarasota Memorial taxes in our tax bills? And we're the biggest city, biggest population, Sarasota County, we don't have a damn hospital. Now we're finally getting 3. Finally. This facility right here is retooling, doubling in size, and putting in all kinds of educational programs to help retool some of our labor force so they can make better income, so that they can work at these hospitals and some of the ancillary businesses that will come. And all these things will make us a healthier city. And will it reduce our property taxes? Nah. But will it mitigate the increase? Will it keep them more level? Yeah, it will. It better. It has to, because we can't sustain ourselves on, like Carmen says, 8-9% non-residential tax revenue. You can when you're 17,000 population, not when you're 100. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So we really are, and you can't just blame it on the past, like nobody paid attention, and these were huge problems. And it wasn't until, 10, 15 years ago, that all of a sudden, after the 2008 crash, that all of a sudden Northport started like becoming alive. It's really been a very short window of growth. And now we're all just trying to play catch up. And 10 years ago, 12 years ago, if you looked at the quality of our potable water and reclaimed water plants, you would have scared the Jesus out of you. You go in now, they look like NASA. I mean, we have the best water systems. We are planning for not just the next 5 years, 10 years, but 20, 30, and 50 years out. So we have the capability to provide good, clean, drinkable water and be able to provide reclaimed water for all our communities around the city. We're working towards converting to water and sewer. Because I tell you, the state mandated it. And sooner or later, the state will start tightening the screws on municipalities that they don't feel are progressive the way they should. So we gotta chisel away at it. And all these things are real challenges. They are. So, again, when it comes to this referendum, keep asking questions. You'll think of more things. Look at how we're doing what we're doing. Think to yourself that, is it really trust? What we're asking for, I think, is a tool in the toolbox that will make us better stewards of your tax dollars. I also believe it will do what everybody's been asking, survey after survey in this city for the past couple of years worth of budgets and cycles have said over and over, the highest priority our citizens have are to fix this infrastructure, even more than safety. Amazing, because we do such a good job keeping our people safe, but they're not doing such a good job in our infrastructure, and it just keeps getting those things. So again, I could spend hours with you guys. We took an hour and a half. I am at Northport Library tomorrow night, the 1st of October. I'm here again, 6 o'clock. Then the day after at Northport. And then I'm doing a Saturday set on October, where is it? October 26th at the Northport Library, and I think on the 18th here. I don't know why it's not.
Will all that,
Oh, yeah, on the 12th, I'm sorry, October 12th, 2 to 3 in the afternoon, and 11 to noon on the 26th, which is Saturday at the Northport Library.
will all of that be about the referendum or will it be other topics?
I'm gonna, well, you saw, we veered off a little bit here. I try to keep it to the referendum to answer questions, but I'm happy to answer more. So you know, Debbie is, she's terming out in, November. I will, starting after election time, despite however this referendum goes, either way, I'll start doing monthlies. I'll do monthly town halls where any subject is on the table. And I think it's important. I also think that, and I would encourage my fellow commissioners to do some of them too, because quite frankly, we've had a lot of 4-1 votes on our commission. And I happen to care dearly about Debbie. Debbie does some wonderful things. And one of the things she's done that has been most wonderful is to reach out to the citizens, to put herself out there, to listen to you all, to talk to you all, to try to explain things. And I think if I said, which commissioner do you trust the most? You'd say, well, Debbie McDowell.
It would be done.
So you know what? Maybe if all of us did more of that, you might trust all of us more. It might make it a little easier when it comes to asking for some tools in the toolbox. So I hope this was worth you all coming out here. I really appreciate you taking the time. You didn't have to.
Thank you.
Hey, John? It's a little box.